Let's take a deeper look at repeating events. I'm going to switch to the week calendar by hitting Command 2, and then to today by hitting Command T. And I have this dog walk here for tomorrow morning. What if I wanted to make that a weekly or a semi-weekly dog walk? I could do that with a repeating event formula. I'm going to right-click on the event and say Get Info. Then I'm going to click on the date of the event, and that's where you have the repeating formula. And by default, you've got several options. I could say every day. If I did that, then it'll show up. You'll see every day afterwards. Or I can make it every week, and then it'll just show up on Thursday. So if I scroll over, I'm going to hit Command right arrow. You'll see it's showing up every Thursday. But I don't want to do that. I want to play some more with this. I'm going to go back to Get Info. And I'm going to change the repeat formula. I can make it every month or every year. The custom button with Apple calendars is actually quite powerful. If you click on that, you can see you can make it weekly with multiple instances. So let's say I want to do the dog walk on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And now if I click OK, you'll see that it will go ahead and change it so it shows up on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays going forward. Other custom schema include based on a daily event. So you could say make it every day or every certain number of days, every 2 or 3 days if you wanted. You could also do it on a monthly basis. This one's got a lot of options. You can make it like every month on the 14th or the 15th, or you could make it on a relative date, like on the first day, or maybe the first Saturday, or maybe the last Saturday, or next to last Saturday. You've got a lot of different options here to create these. Over the years, Apple has simplified and empowered this custom setting to where you can set repeating events on just about any schedule you want. Once you create a repeating event scheme, if you go to delete an event that's on that repeating formula, you're going to get a special dialog. Like I'm going to delete this event right here. It says, do I want to delete only this event or delete all future events? And it works the same if you adjust them. Like let's say I'm going to move the walk an hour early. It's going to say, okay, that's fine. Do you want to only change the time of this event, or do you want to make all future events an hour earlier? I'll say all future events, and you can see it updates it for all future events. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I don't need this dog walk on my calendar for the rest of eternity. One last piece of this, speaking of the rest of eternity, is if you want to have a cutoff for a repeating event, you can do that as well. You can have it end on a specific date, just say end repeat, and then you give it the specific date you want. The workflow over on the iPhone isn't much different. I'm going to select the event and then hit the edit button in the upper right corner, and you can see there's the repeat button in the center of the screen. Again, I can do every week, every day, every month, every year. On the phone, we also get the option to, by default, add every 2 weeks. The custom button is just as powerful, though. You've got daily options, weekly options, again, allowing you to make multiple selections in the same week, which is really nice. Under the monthly, you can do the same thing. You could have it reappear multiple times each month, but they also have the ability to go on certain dates relative, like the first Thursday or the third Saturday or the last Sunday. All that stuff can be accomplished right here under the custom button. One other custom option available to you is the yearly options. If you go down to yearly, you can see not only can you do it every 1 year, but you can do it multiples. So you can say, maybe you do this every 6 years, and you could make a repeating event just for that. Just like on the Mac, you can also set ending times to repeat, so you can have it end never or on a specific date. Apple's made a lot of progress with this repeat function over the years, and at this point, I think for just about everybody, you can get all the repeat functions you need out of Apple Calendar. I just added a second list for this quantum hammock project. Now we've got the study the theoretical time travel list and the gather quantum hammock materials list. So we want to group these, and you can do that with reminders. It's real easy. You just grab one and drag it on top of the other, and that creates a group. Then you can be prompted to put a new name in. I will name this quantum hammock. Now that I've got a name, I can fold that up and everything is organized nicely like the rest of my lists, and I can get to it by toggling that list and getting to any specific one. An additional way you can bring a list to the forefront is to pin it to the top. To do that, you just right click on the list and click pin, and you can see it goes right up to the top. You'll note that when it does that, however, it doesn't leave it in the grouping. It actually takes it out and it treats the pinned as a separate group of lists. If I want to take that out of the pin list, I can unpin it, but it's not going to put it back in the grouping. It's going to put it back in the general area. I've got to just drag that back in. And you can move them around easy enough. But do understand that you cannot make multiple levels of these groupings. For instance, I could not put the quantum hammock grouping inside the MacSparky grouping. It's just one level deep. That's one of the reasons why I've been tagging all these items related to this project, so it gives me another way to get to them outside of the list and grouping structure. When you're using reminders, you want to think about your root level groupings early so you can plan accordingly. One of my favorite features in reminders is the easy way you can attach tasks to locations. For instance, I've got this task here to buy plywood, and you can see that it is going to be triggered by a location when I'm arriving at the Home Depot. I've got a Home Depot down the street from me, so the next time I'm near it, I'm going to get a reminder telling me, hey buddy, you're supposed to be buying some plywood today. And this highlights one of the most useful feature of these location reminders is to help you with shopping. But it goes deeper than that, and I'll show you in this video. Let's create another reminder. This time it's going to be eating. So let's say eat dumplings. And I love dumplings at Din Tai Fun at downtown Disneyland. So I'm going to go ahead and add a location by clicking this button right here. And you'll see when I do that, it gives me by default my current location, which is my home. It also lists my work, which is a saved location, and getting in car or getting out of car. So when you're disconnecting to a paired car or getting out of a paired car, you can have it automatically give you a reminder there. But I want to go to Din Tai Fun, so I'll go ahead and type that. And you can see it gave me several of the local ones. I want to go to this one on Disneyland Drive. I'll hit enter, and now I have added a location to that item. If I go over to the information button here and get further details, you'll see that by default, it's got it showing up when I arrive, which is generally when you would want these to show up. But you can also have it say, no, give me the reminder when I'm leaving the location, not when I'm arriving. So let's say you're at Din Tai Fun and you want to remind yourself to go, I don't know, go to Disneyland because you're in the neighborhood. You could make a task for that and say, when I'm leaving the restaurant, give me a reminder. Although I'm not sure why you would need one for that. All right, so you've got the arriving window set. Now you can set the size of the perimeter. So the reminder is going to be triggered by default here when I'm within 463 feet of the location. That's about right, really. But if you want to make it smaller, you can just take this and drag it in and get it down much smaller. Or if you want to make it bigger, you can drag it out and get it much bigger. Depending on what you're doing, you'll just have to, figure out how these work. Like if you want to make it when you're driving by, you got to make sure it's big enough to encompass the street that is in front of the store. If you want to get really fancy, you can combine these with time-based reminders. We're going to talk about that in the next video. Something a lot of people don't realize is you can also create smart lists based on location. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new list. We're going to make this a smart list. And we're going to look for the location is Home Depot. And there's the one that's close to my house. Home improvement shopping. So now if I click OK, you can see I've got a home improvement one here and it's showing up. And I'm getting buy plywood here because it is at the location Home Depot. So we've got a smart list that just looks for everything at that location. Now, I've been using shopping-based reminders as a demonstration here, but there's a lot you can do. So here's one. I said, charge the car when I get home. I've got an electric car, so I got to remember to charge it. And when I did that, it gave me a suggested location, which is my home. I'll go ahead and click that. And now when I get home, I'm going to get a reminder. Here's another one Call the kids about dinner when I leave work. Again, it's going to give me a suggestion, leaving work. So when I leave work, it's going to remind me to call the kids about dinner. I find these location-based reminders about leaving and arriving at a location actually to be really helpful, and I often use them. I've used a lot of different task apps, and Reminders is one of the best at location-based reminders. The Apple Pencil really does add a separate dimension to notes on the iPad in a couple of ways. So I have tapped on the Apple Pencil here. Let's get the tools to show up. You see them in the lower left corner. If I tap that, it opens them up fully. The first one I want to use is the text tool. And this just takes your very poor handwriting and turns it into searchable text. You can see I wrote the D and the L in the wrong order, and it still got it right. This is actually pretty impressive. It takes a while to get used to writing on glass, and I don't do it that often because I find that when I use a pencil, I'm doing more diagramming than anything else. But when I do it, I'm always impressed. There we go. Got it right. This actually does incorporate some artificial intelligence for handwriting recognition, and it is impressive, although I don't use it much. What I find more useful for this stuff is actual diagramming. Sometimes when I'm making notes on something, I just want to make a diagram. So getting back to our hammock diagram, I was thinking, what if we wanted to diagram the mounting point? So let's do that. And the trick here is the long press. So looking at the tools, I've got a pen, a pencil, a highlighter, an eraser, a selection tool, and a magic tool. So let's go with the pencil. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is draw the pole that is going to be the mounting point. And see, by me holding on to it, it turned it into a nice square item. And then I'm going to draw a bolt that we're going to put through it. And I'm going to, again, hold it, and it turns it straight. Then I want to represent there's a washer here and a nut here. And I'll just draw, whoops, let me do that again. And just by holding the pen, you see it actually turns it into a recognizable shape. So it does make up for a lot of the sins of writing on glass. And then I think the last thing I would do is put a mounting point here. Whoops, and I didn't want to do it that way. I'm going to hit the undo button and draw a circle again, stop at the end. That cleans up the circle. And then I'm going to, draw some lines down here to show what this looks like. All right, so that gets you an idea of the way the mounting point would work. And that was all done pretty basically here. I'm using the pencil. You'll see I'm using the pencil at the medium level. They used to have a more analog pencil where you could turn it on its side and shade it. It really isn't for that. And there's better artist tools if you want to make art. But for doing simple diagrams like this, I think the improvements have made sense. There's also a highlighter so we can highlight things if we want. There's an eraser so you can erase pieces. Let's say we'll take the bottom of the pole off because let's imagine it goes deeper. There's a selection tool where I can select it all, and then that gives me a bunch of options to duplicate it, copy it, paste it, create a sticker out of it, copy as text. They've got, everything here you can think of. And then there's this new tool where they're using Apple Intelligence, and the idea is if you just circle the whole thing, then it would look at it and try and figure out what it is and do a better version of the diagram. And this gets mixed results. I'm going to call this a mounting point illustration. Well, I wrote mounting point illumination, but you know what? I'll put this in. That's not terrible. It's not right, but it's not terrible either. And it's kind of nice that you can do that with your pencil. You can also annotate on top of documents. So we've got this productivity field guide here. I can draw on it. If I want, I can go to a section of the table of the contents. How about that one? Make it bigger. Then I can select the highlighter and highlight the section. Again, there are better tools to annotate PDFs than Notes, but it's pretty impressive that you can do all of this inside Notes. Importing media can really bring your Freeform document to life. There are several ways to do that. To begin with is this little paperclip tool. From it, you've got a bunch of options. The first one would be just to choose a photo or video. So here's my photo roll. Let's see if I've got something here I can use. Here's one from the Disneyland Parade. I'll go ahead and click OK. And that's kind of fun. I've got a nice little picture of the parade in here. King Triton looks good. You can see I can resize it if I want. I can hold down the Command key to spin it. If I hold down the Shift key, I can keep it at a fixed size. And I also have connectors, so I can connect it to something if I want. There we go. We've got a connection if we want. I don't think that's really good for this video, though, so I'll take that out. Another way you can bring photos in is just dragging them in. This is how I do it most often. It's a picture of my dog. I could have pulled this directly out of the Photos app, but I happen to have it on my desktop. What a cutie. All right, so you can bring a picture in by dragging or through the paperclip. The image playground, part of Apple Intelligence, is also available to you. So I could say, okay, take me. And I got to tell you, I never liked the way I look with Apple Intelligence. My goodness, what is that? Okay, well, anyway, I guess that's me. Let's put me at a disco and a top hat and let it crank on that for a minute. Wow. Anyway, I'll click done, but that's just because I'm doing it for you guys. Look at that. All right. Well, that picture is going to go away, but you can add a Apple Intelligence image playground image. You can add a link if you want, www.macsparky.com. And then I've got a link out. If I click that, it's going to open it up in Safari, and then I've got myself linked right to an external web page. This is quite handy when you're doing research as part of your Freeform document. Let's go ahead and put that over there next to the dog. Another thing you can do is you can just add a file if you want. So if you've got any file you want to link to, click it, the Finder comes up, and you go. You can also take pictures right off your phone. Well, my phone's in my pocket right now. I've got to take it out. So now I'm going to say go ahead and use my phone. So now I'm going to use my phone to take a picture. My hair is not combed, and here I am in work mode. I took a picture anyway. Now I'm going to say use photo on my phone. And there it is. Look at that. Oh boy, look at that guy. All right, so I could take a picture straight from my phone and add it directly in. Dragging in, however, is really what it's all about. I showed you to do it with a photo. I've got some more images related to the quantum hammock. I'm going to pull them in here now, start getting things cleaned up. There we go. We got a couple more images for the quantum hammock. Let's get rid of this one, as cute as that little puppy is. You can also bring in outside like PDFs and research. I'm going to go over here to this section, just drag a PDF in, and then I'm going to highlight that and hit Shift-Command-0 to zoom in on it. That gets me to the PDF of the Productivity Field Guide. If I click it, I get a little viewer. It doesn't have a lot of editing tools or anything, but it does allow me to view a PDF straight out of it. Indeed, I could also add a video. Let me just drag a video in there. And let's give us a little more room. And if I hit the play button, I can play the video right inside the application, which is kind of nice. So you got a lot of options here with media. Whoops. Don't need to hear that guy talking. Yeah, you can do a lot with media inside Freeform. I think the most beneficial use for it, frankly, is what I was doing down here. I think this is the most beneficial use right here. What I was doing with the related images to the discussion point I had, especially if you're collaborating with people, putting up images really kind of makes things easy to see and navigate. And this is probably the best use for it. PDFs are also excellent. I know folks who do a lot of like academic research, and they'll drop a series of PDFs into their Freeform documents so they can access them as they're thinking through whatever it is they're studying. And one last point I'd like to make about these is that there are some additional parameters if you want. For instance, this one right here, you'll notice it has these rounded corners on it. That's the default behavior, but if you click on it and then right-click on it, you can turn off the round corners, and you can turn off the shadow even if you want. So you've got some control over what this stuff looks like inside the document, and you can crop the image. Just click on it, hit the cropping button, and off you go. Over on the iPad, you've got the same tools, just slightly different implementation. You still have the crop button, but instead of a right click, you just have the little ellipses button. Hit the three dots, and then from there, you can turn shadow or round corners on. You can even copy and paste styles, and you also have the cut, copy, duplicate, and lock buttons. You can move it backward and forward. So it gives you everything you need, just rather than having a right click, you hit the little three dots. And this is useful on iPad. You want to keep this constrained proportions on, so when you resize it, it generally does that. You can always turn it off if you need. The big deal here, I think, is that if you're going to use Freeform, import some media into it and play with it, because one of the big selling points of Freeform, in my opinion, is that it's this interactive visual diagram that you can use to develop your own ideas or work with others.